Have you ever been playing a game or watching a movie involving ghosts and thought to yourself, yeah, these ghosts are cool, but I wish they were exploding more? If so, I have great news for you because today's monster of the week is essentially a ghost made of fire, and it might just be the hottest undead we've covered on this show. Sometimes when I'm looking something up or just casually flipping through an old D&D book, I'll stumble on a creature that catches my eye for one reason or another, and the Effigy is one such creature. I really enjoy all the 3rd edition monster manuals, some more than others, but they're ultimately what got me interested in D&D to begin with, and when looking up the page for next week's video, I found this guy. I had seen this artwork before and I always thought it was cool, but I'd never really taken the time to read through the creature's entire entry. I'd also never noticed that in the artwork, there's what looks like a silhouette of some maniacal demon in the flames, which is what fully piqued my interest enough to actually dig deeper, and I'm glad I did because this creature is kind of awesome. So what exactly is it? Well, an effigy is a type of spectral undead akin to a ghost or wraith that usually starts its life as some other kind of ghostly undead creature like a ghost or wraith. But over time, its hatred and jealousy towards living creatures grows and grows until eventually it becomes what you see before you, an angry spirit with rage so intense that it literally manifests as fire. So as you can imagine, it does a lot of burning in its true form. In fact, just getting close to it might set you on fire, and of course when it attacks other creatures, it sets them on fire. This might make it easier to spot than a ghost, but it doesn't prevent this spirit from traveling through walls, flying through the air, or doing any of the other ghoulish, ghostly shenanigans that make fighting a ghost so difficult in the first place. But the thing that makes this creature truly deadly, even more so than the other malignant spirits who might be around, is that it can still possess a living creature's body, and when it does so, that doesn't stop it from being on fire. An effigy's possession works mechanically pretty much the same as a ghost, but the big difference here is that the possessed creature bursts into flames. Every round that the creature is possessed, the effigy deals 2d10 fire damage to it, and as the target burns up, the effigy gains temporary hit points. Thanks to the effigy's living kindling trait, anytime it does fire damage to a creature, it gets temp HP equal to half the amount of damage dealt, so the spirit is just burning up the host from the inside out, restoring its own vitality in the process. The one saving grace here is that unlike most possessions in D&D, because you are constantly taking damage, you get to make a charisma save at the end of every turn to end the possession early, which you're gonna want to do as fast as possible because this thing is here to possess its targets and burn them up in a jealous rage as fast as possible before just moving on to the next thing. It's also got a burning aura similar to a fire elemental, so everything within 10 feet of it just takes a d10 of fire damage for being there, and you also start burning, which is going to be yet another d4 at the start of your turn. Ultimately, all of that means if you're possessed by this thing on its turn, you're actually taking 3d10 fire damage per round and another d4 on your turn, so again, get this thing out of you as fast as possible. While not actively possessing another creature, the effigy can make 2 incinerate attacks each round, which of course deal a handful of necrotic and fire damage, and the target's max HP is reduced by an amount of necrotic damage that is taken from this attack. Overall, the actual mechanics of the creature are not insanely complex or overcomplicated. It's a monster with a singular focus, and that focus is to turn everyone around them into a pile of ash. One thing I do want to mention about this monster, just because I think it's kind of funny, is that in 3rd edition, this creature is billed as a CR 17 monster, which is absolutely wild to me. Like, don't get me wrong, it's dangerous, but you'll notice that my conversion of the monster is only CR 8, which is still nothing to sneeze at, but it's a far cry from being on the same power level as an adult red dragon, a death knight, or a Dracolich. I didn't even change that much about this creature either. There are a couple rules like negative levels and spell resistance from 3rd edition that don't really have a one-to-one translation in 5e, but even for its own system, that CR is crazy high. I don't really know why that's true. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if this was an oversight, but I digress. The one thing that frustrates me the most about the original creature's stat block is that it contains almost no information about its origin, but As much as that sucks to see, especially from a 3rd edition book, it does leave the door open for us to come up with some cool ideas of our own. I think it makes sense that any hateful ghost might eventually become an effigy, but I could also see this being a really cool take on an undead fire elemental. Instead of going the route taken in Libris Mortis with the Cinder Spawn, you could have the corrupted spirit of a fire elemental, fire genasi, an Azer, or even an Effigy become an effigy upon their untimely death. This would be a really cool way to have a ghost-centric adventure in a place like the Plane of Fire, which is not often the first locale you think of when talking about undead spirits. I could also see this creature being the result of someone who died a fiery death and maybe even held some level of hatred and anger for the ones responsible for said fiery death. A witch or a heretic who was burned at the stake could make for a great excuse to have an effigy haunting the town, one by one incinerating the people responsible for their demise. This could also make for a neat secondary phase to a Wicker Man fight. Now there's a name that we haven't heard in quite a while. The Wicker Man is a creature from Pathfinder, and I talked about it like 6 years ago on the show, but having a party disrupt the ritual of an evil druid circle who was using a Wicker Man fueled by a bunch of sacrifices to wreak havoc could be a great setup for this creature. Once the Wicker Man falls, maybe an effigy or multiple effigies rise from the ashes, and now our heroes need to deal with that. Or you could have the effigy spawn midway through the fight, or once some of the creatures housed inside the Wicker Man die. There's a lot you could do here. I also really like the idea of a standard ghost encounter taking something of a turn. In a situation where the party is dealing with an angry ghost, maybe once they defeat the standard ghost stat block, it erupts with rage and transforms into an effigy, thus starting phase 2 of the fight. You could give it a mythic action or something. Or maybe a ghost so overcome with anger has been twisted into an effigy, and some other less aggro ghosts are entreating the party to help them put the first spirit to rest. I actually really like this as a concept for a small adventure. You could have the effigy running rampant, and then a group of people who knew the effigy in life went out to try and exorcise it, but they failed, so now they're all ghosts who can't rest until the effigy is put to rest. And they come to the party for help. Maybe they even ask the party to let them possess the party members so that they can go complete this mission together. Obviously, if you're gonna do that, the players would still be controlling their characters, but they would all just have a little ghost buddy inside them who maybe gives them a little bonus or special ability of some kind. There's also something to be said for the more typical Ghost Adventures type story, where the gang heads out on some allegedly haunted location to investigate undead activity, only to roll up on a small village that has been mostly incinerated and just has a bunch of burned up blackened skeletons lying around. You could play this for straight up horror by having a few survivors describe this flaming demon who comes every night and burns up one of the residents while possessing them and using their body to attack anyone who tries to help or intervene. That will definitely give the gang something unconventional to look into, especially if they're on a ticking clock where every night the effigy is coming back to claim another victim. But no matter how you decide to use this gas fire of a ghost, please let me know in the comments down below if you intend to put this creature in your game, or if you've maybe fought one in the past, how it all went down. As always, the stat block for this creature converted into 5th edition is linked in the description down below 100% for free in the form of a Google document, and if you are one of my lovely patrons over on the Dungeon Dad Patreon, which is also linked down below, you can find the high-res PDF stat block, which has all the same game information, but it's just a little fancier and is my way of saying thank you for all the support you guys provide for me each month. Speaking of patrons, it's time for Patron of the Week. This week's randomly selected patron is Archthrone. Thank you so much for the royal amount of support you send my way each month, and thank you for watching. As always, if there's a monster from a previous edition of D&D, Pathfinder, or anything else that you would like to see in an episode of this show, let me know in the comments down below or on the Dungeon Dad Discord or the Monster Suggestions channel, and who knows, you might just see it show up in a future episode of Monster of the Week. Also, you guys know this because you've been watching all of the latest videos, but the Dungeon Dad merch store is now legally up and running and ready for orders. So if you want to go into the description and find the link to that, get yourself a cool t-shirt, get yourself a cool PDF or physical copy of this little adventure zine I made, then you can do that. And that helps support me, and that's awesome. So thank you so much for all of you who have done that. Also, I want to mention that adventure, the only way to get the physical copy is, of course, buying it through the store. But for those of you who are on Patreon at the $5 tier or above, you can just get the PDF for free. So if you want to check it out before you commit to buying the physical copy, or you don't actually want the physical copy, you just want the digital one, the cheapest way to do that is by backing me at the $5 level on Patreon. You get that just for signing up. And if you stick around, maybe there'll be more zines in the future. I don't know. I'm just making them when I got time. Anyways, once again, thank you so much for watching. This is a fun little monster. I hope you enjoy incinerating your players with it, and I will see you in the next one. Till then.